And with that, we're back on our bullshit, anti-realists. Time to start listing nonsense. Ismism. Ismism is effectively the belief on which all niche political thought is founded. If you have a belief, then you can and should put an ism at the end of it. It's where we get post-left Hoppian anarcho-monarchism, or utopian communo-capitalist distributist accelerationism, or conservative primitivist English socialism with primalist characteristics, etc. The realists will tell you that you should pursue your mainstream beliefs first and foremost, and attempt to achieve the most niche changes later. But where's the fun in having coherent politics? No thanks, boomer. If I'm not having my monarchist uprising, my anarchist revolution, my pacifist direct democracying, and my mutualist mutualizing happen at the exact same time, then why even fucking do praxis? To create vague but helpful social change? No! Fuck you! So I forgot to talk about these the last time round, but some very important ideologies to the anti-realist movement are the two other variants of Ingsoc, specifically neo-Bolshevism and obliteration of the self. Neo-Bolshevism is effectively Ingsoc with Russian characteristics, obliteration of the self is effectively Ingsoc with Chinese characteristics. Functionally, they're both the same, and both of them take a page from Ingsoc's book of Doublethink, but where they differ is how they execute their propaganda and how they instill loyalty in their citizens. Neo-Bol. Neo-Bolshevism, or Neo-Bol, is the ideology employed by Eurasia. Neo-Bolshevism puts far more emphasis on its nation's economy, contrasted with the others, when propagandizing the war effort. Of course, Neo-Bol's economy is the exact same black market social capitalism as all the other economies, but Neo-Bol frames its economy as being the perfect synthesis of capitalism and communism. That way, it can demonize the grotesque capitalistic extravagance, as well as the slave-like communistic poverty of the other nations, with a helpful dose of doublethink. On top of that, those that betray the party aren't just thought criminals, they're class traitors. Because even though Eurasia is clearly divided into a class hierarchy, Neo-Bolshevism is the class that unites all classes. Obliteration of the self. Obliteration of the self, or more succinctly, death worship, is the ideology employed by East Asia. Even though it is, again, functionally identical to both Ingsoc and Neo-Bol, it is definitely the most aesthetically distinct. Rather than using nationalism or economic supremacy as the framework for instilling loyalty, death worship uses theology and philosophy. It takes the Buddhist principle of self-sacrifice in the name of a greater whole, and unrecognizably twists it into die for the party. In fact, every single death, aside from suicide of course, is framed as good for the party and good for the dead person. See, citizens are trained to quote-unquote love their enemy, and that the inevitable execution of those who commit the unforgivable sin of life crime is for their own good. Fordism. Off-compass, off-left with drug addict characteristics. We happy few is for pussies. Authoritarianism via pills, babe. Okay, with that, we've finally finished with the variants of hyper-authoritarianism. So, let's move on to everyone's favorite fringes. Esoteric fascism and esoteric socialism are pretty realistic ideologies, but the way they incorporate paganistic theocracy into their entirely secular ideological bases of fascism and socialism is so wacky that it goes off the compass on the wacky scale. At the same time, I feel that their potential is wasted. When do we finally get the pagan Nazbol revolution? Cult Darwinism and cult communalism. Now we're talking! Cult Darwinism and cult communalism are off-compass theocratic takes on the original ideologies. While theocracies are usually founded on the same realist philosophies that make up moralism, cults get a special exception. After all, where would we be as a movement without Catholicism? In any case, cult Darwinism throws away all pretense of, well, scientific Darwinism. It doesn't want to kill the weak in order to make a better community and gene pool. It wants to kill the weak because Ares said so. Occult Darwinism is the worship of war, with a fervent and militant devotion to murder. Think Sparta. Meanwhile, cult communalism is the belief that whether personal property is inherently sinful or whether some great god has demanded its collectivization, the abstention of personal property is the greatest and most sacred good imaginable. To own is to sin. To share is divine. Unfortunately, a couple points get knocked off on this one in my book, as cult communalism, happens in the real world. In fact, it's kind of a signature thing that cults do in order to dehumanize their members, and that's less political than it is sad. Anyway, speaking of deluded collectivist ideologies, Falgsk.
I'm escaping to the one place that hasn't been corrupted by capitalism. Space!
Thumpsec. We have to build underground cities for the capitalist heterosexual ethno-state. Okay, now at first I didn't think I'd be able to stretch this video beyond the 5-minute mark. Off-campus ideologies are already, by definition, incredibly niche. But here's the thing. The economic and statist axes aren't the only axes. Just like how off-campus primitivism and off-campus technology gets you primalism and posthumanism, you can off-campasize other niche axes as well. Axes like ethno-nationalism and globalism and all the rest. So let's get into it. Habsburgism. The logic behind ethno-nationalism goes that a society can only function if the people within it work as a greater whole. If all those within it share the same ancestors, the same culture, the same blood, the same skin tone. Habsburgism takes this idea to its obvious extreme, making sure all a society's members have the same ancestors, the same blood. Yeah, this is where you think it's going. Habsburgists are usually monarchists for obvious reasons, but it's not a necessity. It's just funny. Xenophilic universalism.
Heretics.
Kafkocracy. A wise woman once said, "Bureaucracy is the form of government in which everyone is deprived of political freedom, of the power to act. For the rule by nobody is not no rule, and where all are equally powerless, we have tyranny without a tyrant." But before she said that, a wiser man once said, "Yo, what if Poseidon had to paperwork, and a guy lost his nose but had to fill out the proper forms to get it back, and a guy became a cockroach but still had to get to work on time, and..." In all seriousness, please read Franz Kafka's works. They're a treat, and they're the closest thing we have to off-campus bureaucracy. Meta-anarchy. This one's actually original, and as far as I can tell, came out of the anti-realist movement, which genuinely here is an honor. Anyway, even more fittingly, it was created by the Reddit user Negligible Forces. As the perfect counter to Kafkocracy, it describes itself as post-structuralist. See, meta-anarchy believes that any attempt to describe, limit, or define something, as well as any attempt to control something, is fascistic. Structurally fascistic, to be precise. See, an anarchist may want to bring down a totalitarian regime, but by doing so, they impose their will on that regime and create an unjust hierarchy. Because the regime is, in and of itself, a being with thoughts and desires. Your very cells may wish to rise up against the unjust hierarchy that is your existence, after all. And you wouldn't want that. Anyway, speaking of imposing will... Senatorialism. Senatorialism is the opposite of Illuminatism, which we very clearly just went over. Obviously, that means that it's... What does it mean? Hang on, give me a second. Well, that's not very helpful.
Well, Aaron, answer the question. Who are you?
I don't know. Anyway, next up is momentism. This ideology wants to maintain the status quo by freezing the world in this exact moment of time. It's off-compass status quo centrism. It's cursed, hexed, literally the only thing worse than being a realist. Get that shit into Z- tier. Chaosism. Chaosism is effectively a reworking of anti-centrism supreme, the variant of anti-centrism that our dear friend Grej discussed, combined with meta-anarchy. But not necessarily meta-anarchy, perhaps just meta-thought. It defines itself against that unspeakable ideology of momentism. Not only is the current status quo terrible, all status quo, real, unreal, current, past, or future, is terrible. It wants a permanent revolution to swallow the whole universe. Furthermore, like cult Darwinism and cult communalism, it takes a healthy amount of cultism into account. Chaosism is the worship of chaos. Politics as a means to an end. Chaos as an unyielding ideological war. Beautiful, terrible, and never-ending. To live in a chaosist society is to live in the cruelest and most bloody regime imaginable. Forget the power of rationality and reason, for so much has been forgotten, never to be relearned. Forget the promise of progress and understanding, for in the grim, dark future there is only discourse. There is no peace upon the broken compass, only an eternity of carnage and slaughter, and the laughter of thirsting gods. Which is why I am an ismistic, meta-anarchic, hyper-chaosist. Praise be to chaos. I can do anything. Chaosism, put up your middle fingers to pragmatism. Logos, ethos, facts, and pathos, all overrated. It's time for chaos. Chaosism, put up your middle fingers to pragmatism. Logos, ethos, facts, and pathos, all overrated. It's time for chaos. Time to show everyone what it means for society to be truly free. Anarchy becomes totality, laissez-faire communality, weightlessness becomes gravity, facelessness is identity, baselessness is factuality, eons of punctuality. Chaosism, put up your middle fingers to pragmatism. Logos, ethos, facts, and pathos, all overrated. It's time for chaos. Chaosism, put up your middle fingers to pragmatism. Logos, ethos, facts, and pathos, all overrated. It's time for chaos. I lost my mind so long ago. I'm sick of more than status quo. I'm sick of every single limit, so I'll reduce politics, stupid gimmicks. Then we'll get rid of morals next. Burn the world's sacred texts. Show everyone that what is best is to destroy reality and fuck the rest. Realism had the right idea. Destroying physics is based. But the best way to destroy human hierarchy is to destroy the human race. So say goodbye to coherent thought. Chaos is coming, ready or not. And the world, practice what you preach. Say it with me now. Oh, praise each.